Mavzigti, 30 Seconds of Octavio. My first day at sea has been nothing but stress for me. A huge storm blew in this morning, throwing our ship like an ogre throws knights. At points, I felt as if the ship turned sideways. The hardened crew didn't seem to mind, going about the ship as if this was normal. I'm hoping I can learn to live with it as they do, as my head has felt nothing but aches and sickness as of late. To distract from the pain, I found myself praying to Manziel often, hoping our good God would ward off any ill actions of Icarus. I hope that storms like these are rare, but those hopes are not high, as I can see in the distance more storm clouds. But now, as I write, the storm is fading for now, and all this prayer and thinking of gods and heavenly powers has me deep in thought of this world's greater beings. Are the stories and legends of them true? We act as though they are people with similar feelings, cravings, and regrets. But what if we aren't similar at all? What if they have no feelings? What if they have no regrets? How would that change how we worship and see them? Though I'm not sure how useful these thoughts are for mankind, and I suppose that's best left for the philosophers and theologists. Which I am neither. I am an alchemist, mind and body. I follow the oaths. I was properly initiated, even if the Empire says otherwise. Now, I don't want to make myself mad with talk of the Empire. The seas are known to test its visitors. I'll write more tomorrow after more thought. Hello all, I am Living Moons and welcome back to another Túl Manziel video. Today I'm hoping to cover an overview of the gods and deities of the world with some basic history and info surrounding them. Now, these will be more just simple introductions to each god. Each god should get their own video in the future, hopefully. But for now, I think it's best to just get them all out there. Get some simple ideas out. Now, to begin, Túl Manziel has a variety of gods. Not just in what they are gods of, but how the gods operate and behave. There are around 10 proper gods, depending on who you ask. But in most societies, only one god is worshipped. This god, in which the world was named for, is Manziel. Now, back before the Age of Destruction, which was the apocalyptic event that set back society, most of the gods had their respective cultures and groups that worshipped them, and Manziel himself was a relatively lesser worshipped god. But most lost hope in all the gods once hell broke onto the surface. 120 years after the invasion started, messengers let it be known all around the Sea of Zanus that Manziel will seal away the evils of hell back under the earth. And, in short, Manziel would succeed in doing this. This, along with other miracles proclaimed in Manziel's name, would cement Manziel as the god of man and savior of the world as humanity knows it. Now, Manziel worship was very diverse and spread out after the sealing of hell. But these groups would slowly merge into 3 major churches of Manziel, all believing in Manziel, but interpreting his actions in vastly different ways, leading to major division and hostility between each of the groups soon after forming. The first of these churches to form was the Prophetic Church. which formed within high water around 100 years after the sealing, when a number of prophets predicted numerous events, the most impactful and arguably the most important being the great prophet Ifer Builth prophesizing the fall of Uis, which we will touch on soon. Now, Builth was successful in converting the newly crowned Highland Emperor, who almost immediately began establishing an organized church with the help of Builth. Now, propheticism is based heavily on the spread of Manzelic worship and the recognition of Manziel as the savior of the world to non-believers. In peaceful or violent ways, they'll spread the faith, whichever is most convenient. The faith is also based upon the belief that Manziel acts through the many prophets and saints of the church. Organized Manzelic worship would spread quickly across Perethus and Rostov, but the lack of established structure and control outside of high water would lead to multiple schisms. In the east, they schismed into the Usurpanist Church, which based their beliefs on the violence and force Manziel showed when sealing away hell. Now, Usurpanism believes Manzelic worship may only be spread by force or eliminating any who refuses to convert, leading to many crusades into neighboring cultures, sometimes in acts of self-preservation, others in efforts of conversion. To the north, in Rostov, an almost opposite sect took shape. This is where the Hopesick Church formed. This sect formed their beliefs on the principle that Manziel had pushed back hell with such violence so that man may not need to. The church heavily encourages quiet, peaceful lives, and monasteries and monks are commonplace around Rostov. The push for restraint and peace by the church has been a major influence, being one of the main reasons the whole of Rostov is kept out of major conflicts around the Sea of Zanos. Each of these sects would hopefully get their own videos in the future, diving deeper into their history and beliefs. Now, the next god I've mentioned in a previous video, Icarus, the god beast of the seas and storms. Now, I realize that Icarus is a pretty famous figure in Greek mythology. I had named Icarus back when I was first creating the world as a young boy, so I decided to keep the name since it's been around since the start. Plus, Icarus ended up in the ocean anyways, so the glove still fits. Now, back on topic. The god of the deep sea, Icarus strikes fear in the hearts of sailors and coastal peoples. Icarus was never in close regard to any race, even before the Age of Destruction. Icarus is believed to cause any and all weather on the high seas, be it a light drizzle or a loose whirlpool. It is considered a blessing if you're able to travel outside the Sea of Zanos without harm or danger. Now, Icarus isn't your traditional god. It doesn't have any temples or altars or priests. It's almost just a superstition of sailors worried about the weather, but the power that Icarus shows each and every day at sea says otherwise. Now, Icarus is most commonly depicted as a great sea beast covered with deep pores in which there are many eyes, or so say the sailors. Now, the next god we will cover is Uis. The god Uis used to be considered the god of honor, and was worshipped widely, but after the Age of Destruction and his refusal to help the world, he is now considered the god of betrayal, and is widely hated. In a show of how far Uis had fell, after the Age of Destruction and the formation of the prophetic church, the great prophet Builth foretold that Uis would be punished, and soon after, Manziel himself dueled Uis and won. With Uis defeated, Manziel would raise his sword to execute Uis. But as Manziel's sword moved over his head, its tip caught on the moon's Silbrot, giving Uis just enough time to escape onto the mortal plane, where he is now believed to be hiding. Now, the god of all things alive, Perellus, favors the natural world, a world untouched by man. Perellus used to love humanity back in the ancient times, but grew to despise them as the industrial city-states of the Age of Steam grew to power. The ruthless harvesting of natural resources angered Perellus, and Perellus withdrew from humanity and grew to favor the secluded elves, who respected nature more than man or dwarf. Now, Perellus' worship is widely unknown due to the secluded nature of the elves, with the elves, like Perellus, disliking humanity and choosing to ignore them and avoid interaction more than anything else. Now, Perellus is usually depicted as a tree with a single eye in the center of the trunk. How the elves portray Perellus is unknown. With this next god, it almost bends the rules of what a god is, and that's why at the beginning I said it almost depends on who you ask. And this god is Orcig. Orcig is a god followed by the orc and goblin tribes scattered around the east of the Desert of Ron. If you speak to a goblin or orc, if you can understand their gibberish, they will tell you Orcig is an orcish champion that had achieved godhood after slaying an angel, and he can now control earthquakes. If you talk to any other race, you'll happen to figure out that Orcig is a half-orc who achieved immortality somehow, and used his newfound immortality and some lucky earthquake predictions to control the goblin tribes. If you were looking for Orcig, you would expect a very large, well-built half-orc. In a world where gods and deities can seemingly walk among us, how can some deny their existence? A false god like Orcig provides one example, but another god provides a more curious answer. Patron god of the dwarves and the god of the underground, Geoj is worshipped heavily among the deep dwarves and the few surface dwarves that still linger. Geoj is a quiet god. He does not become involved in many, if any, mortal matters. Some of the other races don't even believe in Geoj, as they refuse to believe why the god of the dwarves would not save his own people from the armies of hell, or interact with the dwarves as much as Manziel interacts with humanity. Now, among the dwarves, to reach Geoj is to achieve true glory in all of dwarf culture. It is believed Geoj has a physical form on Túl Manziel, though it is unknown where. Many dwarves go on pilgrimages and expeditions to unknown places of the world in attempts to locate his physical form. Geoj is usually depicted as a dwarven king in many dwarvish cultures, but among humanity, Geoj is depicted as a living mountain. Another god held closely by the dwarves is Meratio, who is the god of forges, smithing, and mining. This god was popular before the Great Collapse, but it, like most other gods, fell out of favor. It is believed that Meratio often visits a special forge hidden somewhere on the planets, where he forges great artifacts with his ornate hammer named Elvis. Now, from the undergrounds to the skies, we go to the god Kirvilitiu, who is the god of all things that fly. Kirvilitiu is thought to be scornful of humanity for taking to the skies during the Age of Steam, as she believed it to be unnatural and an insult to her and the natural world. And she has not forgiven that grudge and will not until humanity never flies again. With this, Kirvilitiu does not interact with humanity or any race that gets close with humanity, and sticks to the birds and other smaller things that fly. The next god is the god of knowledge, Terej. Terej is a favorite among liches and necromancers, The wise but wicked make deals with Terej to gain knowledge on what some consider to be forbidden or sacrilege. Among the theologians and clerical classes of the world, it is hotly debated whether Terej is its own unique god, or a confusion with one of the abyssal powers with similar associations. Now, the last deity I will cover is named Arcarion, and Arcarion is the god of magic. An esoteric god, Arcarion is only known and worshipped by the thaumaturgic occult. Within the occult circles, it is believed that Arcarion embodies all magic and embodies the principles of the thaumaturgic occult. Now, I could go much deeper into what Arcarion is and how the deity ties to the occult, but we only have so much time, and Arcarion pretty much needs its own video. So look out for that in the future along with some more videos covering the magic. Well, those are all the gods that I wanted to cover today. They are all the main deities of the surface, and even though there are some more hellish deities that I haven't covered, known as the abyssal powers, they aren't too important, so I'll leave them to a later video so that this video isn't even longer. And I know I kind of started a series with the Tour of the Lands. I have the part 1 out. I decided to take a break as I don't exactly know where to take part 2 right now. I almost have it done, but it should be out hopefully soon. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.